sharanam gacchami, dharmam sharanam.
The first empire in India was from Magad, present-day Bihar. Here we have the Mauryan Empire and the greatest emperor Ashok. In the 3rd century BC, when transport and communication were not so easy, Ashok, for the first time in Indian history, thought of engraving his messages on stones and pillars when barely people knew how to read them. So, he arranged an official at every site to read the content of the inscription to officers and masses.
Devanang piyasa asokasa vachanena adhikani aratyani vasani yang sumi upasake samvachare satireke angsumi sanghang upagati uthanacha sumi upagate.
He recorded his voice on stone right from Afghanistan to Jaugarh in Odisha and from Kalsi to sites in peninsular south in Karnataka and Andhra. The Maurya power reached its zenith during the reign of Ashoka. In the 8th year after his coronation, Ashoka waged a war against Kalinga, that is, present-day Orissa. There was terrible violence in this war and mass-scale destruction. It became a turning point in the life and career of Ashoka. Filled with deep remorse, he gave up war. He embraced Buddhism. It was for the first time in history that a ruler gave up war after victory.
Hyderabad Karnataka Regional Development Board, which has been established around 2 years back for the overall development of this area after the constitutional amendment 371J for the overall development of Hyderabad Karnataka area, which is a part of Karnataka. You see, this area has got a long historical background, and after the Kalinga War, even though his supremacy was well established, he took up a different path and he embraced Buddhism. Maybe there was a lot of change in his thinking because he was influenced by Buddhist monks at that time, and because of that, you see, he tried to bring in his administration various changes which had brought peace for a long time, and also he tried to bring in his governance various other modalities through which he could bring in some discipline and also right thinking for this people in his kingdom, so that peace and prosperity prevailed at that time. So Ashoka is definitely a great king in Indian history.
It is Karnataka where we get 9 Ashokan sites, the largest concentration of sites among all states in India. Let us now move to the first site, Maski. This is the site of Maski, which has yielded an Ashokan inscription bearing the name of Ashoka for the first time. And this helps us to connect all the inscriptions with Devanang Piyadasi Raja and attribute them to Ashoka. This is the Maski Edict, which was discovered by C. Beedon, who on behalf of messers and tailors was searching for gold in this whole region of Maski, and he found this very rock, which for the first time brought to light the name of Ashoka. it reads Devanang Piyasa Ashoka. So in the very first line, we get the name of Ashoka at Maski. An officer called Rajvachanika used to read the inscriptions aloud, and people used to assemble here in congregation to listen.
Establishing a southern capital with Aryaputra as the overall head could have been thought about, and it should have been somewhere in this neighborhood. Where was the Suvarnagiri is also a disputed kind of a thing. Some suggest it was Kanakagiri, located in the Raichur district, Koppal district. Some say that it's a kind of a Suvarnagiri is somewhere in Andhra Pradesh. And but if you take the foremost of the Buddhist centers in Karnataka, it is the present Kanaganalli and Sannati that make us to receive greater attention. Kanaganalli and Sannati developed into a major Buddhist centers. And in Kanaganalli we also find the portrait sculptures of Ashoka, which means that Ashoka was very much remembered, unlike in other places. Whether it has anything, even if they are not of the same date, but the memory of Ashoka was so strong that the portraits of Ashoka were made.
Let us now move to the site of Sannati on the bank of river Bhima. This is Sannati. Here we have the Bhima river flowing down. Near the Bhima river, there is a broken sculpture lying on the ground in 4 or 5 pieces, and this is a female sculpture of a deity. This deity was the original deity of the Chandralamba temple, and possibly this base of the sculpture, which is lying out here, was put inside the Asokan edict, and the stone on which the Asokan edict was found was cut to suit the needs of the pillar base of this particular sculpture. So, when the sculpture was broken, they wanted to take it out and replace it by a new sculpture, and during that time, the Asokan inscription was a chance find. The Chandrala Parameshwari temple was established in 7th or 8th century CE but had undergone several renovations. This is the sculpture of Mahakalika worshipped in the temple at present. But before this, there was another sculpture. This is the one reassembled by us on the right. Now here we are in front of the deity again, and with the help of the local people in the temple and also the temple authority, we have tried to reassemble the deity. After joining the pieces, now you can see the full figure of the seated goddess, and we have the Baju Bantha, which is formed out of snakes, and the deity is holding a Trishula in one hand and Kapala in the other hand. And it's a beautiful figure of a Kalika, Mahakalika with the Mundamala. It is believed that broken images or Khandita Pratima is not worshipped inside a temple. But after reassembling this goddess, we feel that we have resurrected the goddess, or we have done a Punarpran Pratishtha into this Mahakali. In Orissa, there are 2 sites. One is Dholi and other is Jaugarh. Here we get separate edicts of Ashoka. These are the special edicts where Ashoka does not mention the remorse after the Kalinga war. So it was intended for the people of Kalinga. Let us now hear what Professor B.P. Sahu has to say about the Kalinga edicts or the special edicts.
Almost till about 25 years ago, people normally believed that the special edicts or separate edicts that were there in Orissa or Kalinga were the only ones. But more interestingly, as you would be knowing, or to be shown to you, what you find is that in the Sannati edict, you also find a similar kind of representation. That a Sannati, the same thing happens. You have representation of the special edicts, where again similar things are being expressed by the emperor, and that's engraved on those inscriptions. That opens up a new what you call set of questions, and the questions are that was it that either under Bindusara that this area was conquered, which Ashoka inherits, and therefore in a newly conquered territory he goes on to place inscriptions like the special edicts in Kalinga, showing his concern to the newly conquered people, or possibly that, as in the case of Kalinga, maybe this area was also conquered by Ashoka himself.
Now let us move to Kanaganahalli, the peripheral unit of Sannati, where the Ashokan inscription is preserved right now. Here we have a 1st century BC AD stupa. These inscriptions not only mention Ashoka's name as Raya Ashoka, but also several other Satavahana rulers like Simukha Satakarni, and others. The only edict of Ashoka which is inscribed on both the sides of the rock. So there is inscription on this face of the rock as well as the other face of the rock. Here you can see a big hole in the rock, and this is where the deity was placed. So this rock was lying horizontally and the deity was sitting on it.
We see that the concentration of Ashokan inscriptions in Karnataka gets situated in a larger perspective of historical development. In that sense, therefore, if we are thinking in terms of the structure of Mauryan Empire, it could perhaps be seen in the way in which the Indian Constitution today visualizes the relationship between the unitary form and the federal form. We have to remind ourselves the manner in which modern India tries to invoke very often the need to strengthen the bonds between the center and the state. Similarly, I would say, Ashok tried to bring up that kind of relationship where there is a certain amount of exercise of sovereign authority on the part of the emperor sitting in Pataliputra, and also a whole lot of people at different levels of economic development, and also representing different social classes, different cultural values, and so on and so forth.
Let us now visit the site of Gavimat in Koppal district. It is difficult to climb and reach the Ashokan inscription. As you can see, one can place 1 foot in each step. Gavimat has a minor rock edict 1 of Ashoka. This inscription speaks about Ashoka and his zeal for Buddhism. This inscription mentions that it is 2.5 years that Ashoka has become a Buddhist, but he has not been very zealous. But now, since last 1 year, he has now become very zealous and he has taken a lot of steps to do a lot about Buddhism. In the Gavimat cave, you can see the footprints of Buddha, which may have been engraved by one of the Buddhist devotees who visited the site. Such footprints are also seen in the sites of Jatinga Rameshwar and Palkigundu in Karnataka.
Ashoka got his edicts written all over the country, and when he started getting them written, he selected the Deccan, particularly the Karnataka area, for his minor rock edicts. Why he chose Karnataka for his minor rock edicts, we do not know, but there should be a purpose behind it. You know, of the 18 minor rock edicts he has got written or engraved across the country, 9 are located, say, in Karnataka. That means 50% of the records are here. An interesting part is to see that while he chose the Deccan and drew the boundary of his empire through these edicts, he also did one more thing. He located 8, he selected about 8 spots, say, in Karnataka, and only 3 spots in Andhra Pradesh. By installing these inscriptions, say, Ashoka introduced a language to the south. Prakrit language was the first time introduced. And if minor edicts happened to be the first set of edicts which he issued, then he was, after deciding that the practice should be the lingua franca of his empire, he experimented first in Karnataka and then elsewhere.
Not very far from Gavimat is the site of Palkigundu. and the inscription is located at the top of the hill. One has to climb the hill to reach the inscription. The Palkigundu rock looks like a palanquin, and hence it is called the Palanquin Rock. Here we have the footprint of Buddha and the minor rock edict of Ashoka, which is highly damaged and eroded. Finally, here the script is the same as what we found in Gavimat, and also the text of the inscription is the same as the one found in Gavimat. There are post holes where flags might have been placed to attract the attention of the people that the Ashokan inscription is here. So these became the landmarks for making the Ashokan inscriptions visible to the masses.
Many of the sites of the Ashokan edicts in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh are either located close to minerally rich areas or bear indications of pre-Mauryan working of mines. These areas were very rich in mineral resources. Along with the availability of iron, this area is known for the iron production in the megalithic burial culture sites. The availability of iron like a base metal, along with that, this area is noted for the availability of gold. That's why the name Suvarnagiri stands out. It is therefore very likely that the Mauryas were interested in maintaining control, supervision and regular contact with the Andhra Karnataka region in order to extract the mineral resources there. Interestingly, the mineral resources extracted was not utilized by the Mauryas for the development of the local society, because there was hardly any visible change in the material culture of Andhra Karnataka sites, even after nearly a century-old Mauryan occupation. This, therefore, makes Andhra Karnataka area another kind of periphery for the Mauryan Empire, different from the peripheral position of the northwest.
This is Udegola. We have to cross the field to reach the inscription site. Villagers out here used to store their grains, woods, etc. just in front of this rock. And in an unfortunate event, when there was fire here, that we lost a major portion of the edict. We do not know how exactly a fire could have caused this kind of a destruction. But as we can see that the major portion of it is chiseled out, here only hardly 16 to 20 characters are visible. Whereas the other edict has a lot of characters which are well preserved. Unfortunately, we have just lost this edict. We have now come to the spot where the minor rock edict 2 of Ashoka is there. And this edict has very distinct characters. And what is interesting about this minor rock edict 2 at Udegola is that the engraver uses a kind of a full stop or a matra for indicating the end of the sentence. Let us now go to the nearby site of Nittur. Nittur and Udegola are almost like twin sites, not very far from each other. Now we are here in Nittur and I'm standing in front of the Ashokan inscription and feeling very excited. Just as in Udegola, in Nittur as well, the inscription starts with Raja Ashoka. The scribe here continues his writing here as well, So the scribe is writing around like this, and here as well you have the lines of the inscription. From Karnataka, let us now move to Bihar, metropolitan area of the Mauryan Empire. We are now in Pataliputra, the capital of Ashok. This is Kumrahar. Right in front of me is the ground where pillars were found. There were several Mauryan pillars which were excavated in course of the excavation. And one of them can be seen here, right inside the cage. And there are many fragments which are just lying in front of them. This pillar definitely is the Mauryan capital pillar or the Asokan pillar, though it's not inscribed properly with the edicts of Ashoka. But there are a few letters inscribed, and very interestingly, there are also a few symbols engraved on them. Of this, you can see a three-peaked hill with a crescent. This is the Mauryan symbol which is also found on the Panchmark coins of the Mauryans. Rajgir, also known as ancient Girivraja. It was surrounded by hills. You can see the Cyclopean wall just in front. Both the Chinese pilgrims Faxian and Xuanzang mentioned about an Ashokan column at Rajgir. Unfortunately, there is no Ashokan column at Rajgir at present. The nearest Ashokan inscriptions from here are the Barabar inscriptions. There are 7 caves, 3 donated by Ashoka and 3 by his grandson Dasharatha to the Ajivikas. From here, let us now move to Gaya, Jehanabad district, the site of Barabar. The Ajivikas to whom the caves were donated were fatalists or believed in destiny. These caves have beautiful polish on their walls. We are here at the Karnachopper cave, and this cave has several inscriptions. As you can see, the entrance has inscription engraved on the wall. These are all traveler and pilgrim records. The cave has apsidal roof, and you can very well see the lustrous Mauryan polish. Let us now go to the next cave on the other side of this hill. This is the Lomash Rishi cave, and you can see that this is still unfinished. There is a circular hut-like structure at the end of this cave. There was a plan for an apsidal back which they could not accomplish just because a crack developed throughout the cave. And after this crack developed, they decided to abandon it, and the same plan was carried out in the next cave, that is the Sudama cave. From the Barabar caves in Bihar, let us again go back to Karnataka. Now we will visit different complex, that is the Isila province, which is different from Suvarnagiri. Here in Isila, we have 3 sites, that of Jatingarameshwar, Brahmagiri and Siddhapur. To reach this site, one has to climb the Jatinga hill. So let's start climbing the Jatinga hill at Jatingarameshwar. It is an uphill task. This is the border of Ashokan Empire, not in Suvarnagiri, but a separate territory mentioned as Isila in the Ashokan records. It is also known as the Balgodi, that is the bangle seller's rock, as bangle sellers chose this tirtha or pilgrim site for selling bangles. So here is the stone encasing, which actually is the compound for the Jatinga Rameshwar temple as well as the Ashokan inscription. There are two hills by the name of Jatinga, the bigger Jatinga hill and the smaller Jatinga hill. You can see the smaller Jatinga hill as we are standing on the bigger Jatinga hill, which has the Rameshwar temple and the Ashokan inscription. There is a myth that Jatayu's wings fell on the small Jatinga hill, from which the site got its name Jatinga. The Ashokan inscription on the Jatinga hill was discovered by Louis Rice in 1892. And now we will proceed to the Ashokan inscription. At Jatinga Rameshwar, the inscription is different from what we had seen in the previous ones. Here the rock is not vertical, rather it's horizontal and on the ground. So this inscription is clearly written on the surface, and at the end we find the name of Chapada written in Kharoshti characters.
Another important thing is see that we notice in the minor rock edicts of Karnataka is, for the first time, he allows a sculptor to name himself in his inscriptions. You know, that Ashoka never allowed anybody to be named in the inscription except himself. Even when the queen's inscription edict was issued, it was he who was naming the queen. So he didn't allow anyone to do it. But an exception to this happens to be in Karnataka. That is the sculptor who came all the way from Gandhara to this place, and his name is Chapada. So to me, first instance of Prakrit writing, first name of a sculptor, both are found in the history of our country here. And that's why you see the Karnataka inscriptions are very, very important.
The next site in the territory of Isila is Brahmagiri. It was believed by the local people that washing the rock on which the Ashokan inscription is engraved will bring good health to them, and this rock is called Aksharagundu or Mantragundu. We have the Ashokan inscription, Minor Rock Edict 1 and 2 here. This was also a part of Isila, and the Mahamatras and Aryaputra, probably who had come from Magad, had actually instructed from Suvarnagiri the people of Isila. The people of Brahmagiri are wished good health. After that, they have been asked to follow the path of Buddhism. Now from here, let us move to Siddhapura, which is known as Ashokan Siddhapura. After walking and climbing a few steps, one reaches the Ashokan inscription site at Siddhapur. So now we have almost reached. This is a huge rock boulder. Here you can see that the characters They are more uniform, it's neatly written, but most of it has again been eroded. And from there, the Rajvachanika would have probably read it aloud. And people might have gathered all around. Isila was the peripheral unit of Ashokan Empire, the southernmost limit of it.
The Hyderabad-Karnataka region has, if I remember correctly, about 8 or 9 out of the total 17 edicts occur in these 6 districts. The Hyderabad-Karnataka Region Development Board's main objective in commissioning this study, we can call it academic as well as visual study of these edicts in this region, in order to understand better the use of political ideology in the ancient period in order to unify a kingdom, as was done by the Emperor Ashoka. What is really interesting and what has prompted Hyderabad Karnataka Region Development Board is that this whole region was quite far away from the core of the Ashokan Empire. It would be called perhaps the periphery. But still, there is a theme running through the edicts in the language, the script, as well as the messages that have been delivered. And these are indicative of an attempt to create a unified administration, as well as what one may very loosely called a secular state.
From extreme south, let us move to the extreme north, across the Himalayas, and visit the site Lumbini and Niglihava. Ashok, in his 14th year after coronation, gave a donation to Buddhist monks at Niglihava, but he did not visit this place. Finally, he came here in the 20th year after coronation, when he was on a pilgrimage of 256 nights. He visited Lumbini, then he might have come to Niglihava. An inscribed Ashokan pillar was erected to commemorate his religious grant of the 14th year after coronation. This is the Ashokan column at Niglihava. From here, let us now go to Lumbini. People from all over the world, particularly the Buddhists, come here just because of the faith that Buddha was born here, and Maya gave birth to Buddha under this tree. In front of us is the Ashokan pillar. Ashoka visited this place and erected this column, and there is a Brahmi inscription on this pillar. Ashoka came here in his 20th year after his coronation, and after coming here, he just announced that he is exempting the people from taxes, that is Bali, as well as the Athabhaga. This Ashokan column had a capital on the top, and which is lost at the moment. Ashoka went on pilgrimage for 256 nights, and in this pilgrimage he visited sites like Lumbini, Niglihava, Vaishali and other places. At Vaishali, we have a relic casket of Buddha, and Buddha's ashes were inside this relic casket. After the death of Buddha, his ashes were divided among 8 clans, and the Lichavis of Vaishali were one of the clans to receive the ashes of Buddha. In 1958, a small relic casket was found which contained the ashes of Buddha. Along with it, there was a cowrie shell and a copper punch mark coin which is found from Samastipur district of Magadh. And this relic casket was actually excavated out during the time of Ashoka, and it is said that Ashoka took the ashes out of this relic casket and built 84,000 stupas. You can see the hole from which the relic casket was actually excavated out. Let us now see the Ashokan column with the lion capital at Vaishali. This pillar definitely is an Ashokan pillar because of the Mauryan polish. But definitely this pillar was not engraved with Ashokan inscriptions. We have inscriptions on it which are later, like the shell inscriptions which was much later engraved on the pillar. Back to Karnataka, let us have a quick look at the 9 Ashokan sites.
Ashokan inscriptions are not preserved, they are imprisoned. In a very bad state, they are in a very bad state. Everywhere.
You feel so sad.
See, who conceived the idea of building a wall around or a roof on top of it? And who was the person, see, who decided in the end that this suits that particular? You see, Ashokan inscription should be regarded as national heritage, and the global tenders should be called from the architects of the best world to highlight and showcase these things. To showcase these things, see, what I mean is see that they should be accessible
in their original landscape,
in landscape,
ambience,
and the light should be available. Access to the photography and accession to the common man to the topmost scholar. And it should be a place where one should go and relax and enjoy. You see, the Ashokan edicts are scattered across the country and across the state also. You do not expect people to go and see all the 8 sites.
Exactly.
If all the 8 sites can be brought in a place like Bangalore or Mysore or anywhere.
What is the purpose of the Ashokan Circuit Karnataka, what we are doing, The basic purpose is that connecting all the 9 sites through this documentary so that people can at least see where their edicts are and how they look like.
HKRDB would also like to connect all the Ashokan Circuit in Karnataka for the first time in India. And also we'd like to develop a museum in Karnataka itself so that the history and all the sites are well connected and people will like to visit that area.
Ashokan Circuit Karnataka is an attempt to connect all the 9 sites of Karnataka into a single circuit. It is Karnataka which has the maximum number of Ashokan sites, and it is here that we have the name of Aryaputra, that is the provincial governor who was probably Ashoka's son. There are so many special features in Karnataka which make it so very important. Karnataka and Andhra are the only places where we get the minor rock edicts too of Ashoka. So everything about this region is so very important that Ashoka had to send his son as the viceroy of this region. And this attempt of connecting the Ashokan sites into a single circuit began when we visited Maski. And when we visited Maski, it was the 100th year of the reading of the name of Ashoka. So we wanted to celebrate it in a way by connecting the sites into a single circuit. And we would like to connect all the sites right from Afghanistan to Karnataka into a circuit in future. We would like to thank the Hyderabad Karnataka Region Development Board for giving us this opportunity to visit the sites and also to connect them into the Ashokan Circuit Karnataka.
पापस्य कर